Good morning, everyone. How's everybody doing? All good? I have to apologize. I walked in this morning and I couldn't find my USB with my PowerPoint, which I think is still in my computer from yesterday from where I was making some edits. So I've been back in the back trying to remember. Let's see, the second page said what? So I was doing by memory. So I apologize. It may not be the best of PowerPoints, but we'll have something up there. Announcements. I just want to remind you, some people got some new name tags. Hopefully you got them. Tom helped me out and was passing them out. If you don't have a name tag, let me know. I can get you a new one. You got yours? No? You have an old one? Okay, I can get you a new one. Okay, I'll get you a new one if you don't have yours. Anyway, just let me know. Take care of name tags. Don't forget about Zoom, that if you can't show up or if you're out of town or something like that, we're always on Zoom, and you can always watch the replay on YouTube. And let's see. Oh, come on up, Urge. Just stand up and you have an announcement about prayer vigil.
Saturday, October 5th, starting at 6 a.m. when you get here. Deacons are hosting a prayer vigil, last till midnight that day. Praying in general for the well-being of our church, our state, our city, our country, because a month from then, there's an election. We will be hosting another prayer vigil on November 5th. So you may sign up, go to government.org, and there should be a digital tab in there somewhere. Come for 30 minutes, come for 10 minutes, come for 1 minute. You don't have to sign up, but if you do, that way we know who to expect. See most, if not all of you there at some point.
Thank you very much. Yes, Harold.
For several years, a midwinter fellowship out of Red. Y'all want to do that again? So mine froze and finally stopped smelling like his and Harry's froze and stopped smelling like smoke. So I think he's ready to cook more food for us. How does the 14th of December, 14th of September to Saturday?
I'll include that in next week's email. If does everyone know that I send out emails on Mondays?
Yes.
It goes through Realm. You should be getting them. If you're not, I'll blame Realm, but check your spam folder. But you should be getting emails. This week's email may have been a little abbreviated. There could have been a typo in there because I was typing with my thumbs because I was out of town when I typed it, and I have to tell you what I did. I was in Chicago on Sunday. I was in Chicago Monday morning, and then we drove to Iowa. We went to a Cubs game on Sunday, the last game of the year, sat in the bleachers in the front row, and then went to Iowa to the Field of Dreams because Kim, through her magical connections, talking to everyone, my wife talks and talks and talks, and we joke about it, but sometimes it's good. She met someone at a networking event, talked to him, and was comparing the fact that her husband is a huge baseball fan, and this guy was a huge baseball fan, and this, and this, and they were talking, like debating about who was the bigger baseball fan, and something came up about the Field of Dreams and how I had been there 3 times, and the guy says, "Really? I'm on the board of the place that runs the Field of Dreams. Would y'all like to stay there a night?" And Kim was like, "Yeah." So back in August, when I opened up, I got a letter in the mail, an envelope in the mail, right at my birthday, and I open it up, and it's a gift certificate to stay at the Field of Dreams. So we stayed at the Field of Dreams on Monday night, and Field of Dreams is magical. If you like baseball, if you love the movie, it's magical. But what was really amazing, which of course I'd never done before, even though I'd been there to see it 3 different times, once with my dad, once with my kids, and once when Kim was doing something else, and once when the whole family went. Because the kid said Kim had to see it too. She still laughs about that. But what was really magical is we got to turn on the lights on Monday night. Just the 3 of us were there. Our daughter couldn't make it, and so Brandon was with us, and we played baseball under the lights, shagging flies, hitting batting practice, and it was amazing, amazing. So I definitely think if you love baseball at all, I suggest you take advantage of it. All right, let's stand and sing. Spirit of the living God, fall afresh on me. Spirit of the living God, fall afresh on me. Melt me, mold me, fill me, use me. Spirit of the living God, fall afresh on me. Pray with me. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for all that you do for each and every one of us. Thank you for Men in the Word. Thank you for these great gentlemen who put up with me every week. Please speak through me and in spite of me as we talk about a difficult passage today. Bless everything in thy name. Amen. I don't know if you read ahead. We're talking about 1 Timothy chapter 2, verses 9 through 15. And we're talking about women. We're also going to talk about translations. And before we get started, I've got to tell you a story. You see the jersey I'm wearing today. If you don't recognize it, it's the Miami Marlins. And I know they're not a very good team, especially since they moved to Miami. But the reason I love this jersey is it makes me think of my dad. Not that my dad ever lived in Miami, lived in Dallas every year of his life. But when I was a kid, around 70, I guess probably started in 71, 72, 73, definitely in 74. The company that my dad worked for owned property, besides in Dallas, they owned some commercial real estate firm. They owned some things around the country and around the world. One of the things they owned was a hotel in Nassau in the Bahamas. Well, starting in 71, and it picked up every year through the mid part of 74, they sold the hotel. And my dad, because of what he did as the proverbial CFO, was in charge of that. And he made dozens of trips to Miami throughout that time. And in 74, I actually asked him yesterday, how many trips did you make? And he says, gosh, in 74, we finally closed it that summer. And I think I made 20 trips just that year to Nassau, going to Miami and then taking the small plane to Miami and then taking the small plane to Nassau. But what I remember so vividly is that my dad was gone a lot, but I didn't really notice it. And it was for a couple of reasons. Number one, I have a great mom. So she was able to take care of things and keep us not missing him as much. But number two, the fact that he basically always brought me back something from Miami/Nassau. Sometimes it was a carved coconut. I still have one that looks like a Miami Dolphins helmet. I still have it today. I told Kim about it yesterday. She's like, yeah, we still have that, don't we? It's over there on that shelf. Like, yeah, I love that thing. Sometimes it was just a free deck of cards that he got from flying first class on Braniff. But he would bring me something. So I look forward to him coming back, but I didn't miss him as much because my mom and my dad both made him being gone an okay experience. But I look back at it because I don't know what costs were. And of course, I was a little kid in the early 70s, but it wasn't easy to make a phone call from Nassau to Dallas back then. So I never talked to him on the phone when he was gone, ever. Not once did he call and I got to talk to him. Think about in today's world. Think about how things have changed. And if I was 4 or 5, 6 years old right now, and my dad was in Miami, he could be, getting out his phone and FaceTiming me. He could be at his desktop or laptop computer tonight and doing a Zoom call. I could talk to him for an hour and see his face. Things have changed. Things change all the time in society. Things change all the time technologically. Things change all the time with how we do things. And that's something we need to keep in mind as we look at this passage. All right, I'm going to read 1 Timothy 2, 9 through 15. This is from the NIV. I also want the women to dress modestly, with decency and propriety, adorning themselves not with elaborate hairstyles or gold or pearls or expensive clothes, but with good deeds appropriate for women who profess to worship God. A woman should learn in quietness and full submission. I do not permit a woman to teach or to assume authority over a man. She must be quiet. For Adam was formed first, then Eve, and Adam was not the one deceived. It was the woman who was deceived and became a sinner. But the women will be saved through childbearing if they continue in faith, love, and holiness with propriety. This is the word of the Lord. So I think, again, the first thing to think about as you look at these passages is how things have changed, how the world is different today. Look at how, again, how things have changed just in the last 20 years, in the last 10 years, definitely in the last 50 years since my dad went to the Bahamas, and how things have changed then as far as how he could contact his family. Look how things have changed in the last 100 years. In the last 2,000 years, things have definitely changed. And we have to think about that as we read this. The other thing we have to think about is, remember that this is Paul writing to his good friend Timothy about churches and about the church that Timothy is at, where Paul was at for a few years. And he's talking about the church. And he's talking about how, in his mind, how women should be at that church, how they were acting then, how they should act in the future. And yet, as we read this, and we often put it more in a perspective of this is how women should be all the time. And that's not what Paul was talking about. He was talking about at this church. The other thing to think about is translations, as you can see the title of this slide. There are so many, well, first of all, the fact the Bible was written in a different language and translated into English is what we read it in, of course, today. But there are so many words that have different meanings or strange meanings or are hard to translate or are confusing to translate. Think of the word love that we have. And you've known this from other things that we've studied in the past. When we've said love, as we've read a passage in the Bible, when you talk about Greek, it could be love, which is love, or agape, or eros, or philia, or philos, or there are different terms that have different kinds of love. You know, as opposed to the love that you say, I love you, or your good friend, I love you. It's a different type of love, which we still call it all one thing. Here, in Greek, they have different terms for it, different ways. And it's the same thing here. You have to think about the translations. A great example out of this verse is quiet. I read verse 12. It says, I do not permit a woman to teach or to assume authority over a man. She must be quiet. Well, when Paul says quiet, the Greek word is, I don't speak Greek, so I apologize if I mispronounce it, hesychia, Hesychia. It would have been on the other PowerPoint. It's also used in Acts 22 and 2 Thessalonians. It means settled down, undisturbed, unruly. It doesn't mean not saying a word. There's a difference between that quiet and the quiet that we might read into the passage or hear into the passage when we hear it. So again, yeah, we have to think about translations and what the translations can mean and how it may have started this way when it was written more than 2,000 years ago, but now it's a different thing because of changes in society, changes in the world, and also the translation and how translations can kind of get you into, I won't say into trouble, I'll call it a pickle. You know, that a translation will put you into a pickle that messes up whether it's your life or someone else's life. And I want to tell you a translation story that hopefully fits in with this translation problem that we're having, so to speak, with chapter 2, verses 9 through 15. Back in 2000, I think it was in 2000, TV station I worked at got sold. And we got new owners. And the new owners came in, and one of the first meetings that we had, some different managers had to go to a meeting, and this was probably late 2000. They had their own travel agency because most TV stations travel a lot. Well, when they owned at the time, they owned 30 or 40 TV stations around the country. It's a lot of travel when you have lots of them going to Democratic conventions and national conventions and wherever the hurricane is and wherever the tornadoes are and all kinds of travel. So they had one company, their company had one travel agency that they worked for. So I go to a meeting, there were probably a dozen of us in there, along with the person who was from the corporate travel agency. And she says, do not do anything travel-wise. I don't want you to book an airplane flight, a bus flight. You shouldn't book a hotel without going through us. Everything goes through us. And some people are like, oh, okay, whatever. I'm like, eyes wide going, really? Okay. It's not the way I handle it, but okay. Wow. Well, in 2001, because of the economy being so bad, we basically didn't travel at all, and because of some different things with UT teams, we didn't travel at all. Well, 2002 rolls around. It's May of 2002 or June, early June of 2002. Texas Longhorn baseball team wins the Super Regional, and that means they're going to Omaha. Well, on Monday morning, I go into work, find one of my bosses, and tell him, okay, listen, I got to go to Omaha because we have a really good team, and I think they have a chance to win the national championship. I've got to go because I was afraid they're going to say, you can't go anywhere. I said, no, we got to go. And I'm going to drive. And when I said, I'm going to drive, he's like, huh? How far is that? It's about 13 hours, roughly 14, maybe 12 and a half if I really go fast. He's like, I drive? Yeah, I might be up there. If they win the national championship, I'll be up there for 10 days. I'm going to have to take a lot of equipment. I'm going to have to take a lot of clothes. It's just easier to drive. I said, okay. But where are you going to stay? Because you're going to have to go through Belo Travel to get a hotel. It's like, I can't go through the media hotel. You got to go through Belo Travels. Okay. So I go back to my office, pick up the phone, call Belo Travel. Lady answers, said, hey, Jane, I need to get a hotel room in Omaha, Nebraska, starting on Thursday night, going through, Thursday night, going through, I could be there for 10 days, going through the 22nd. So, okay, hang on a second. Boom. I hear a punch in the computer. Okay, Mike, you're all set. Here's the confirmation number. Write down the confirmation number. Even get her email from her with all this stuff. Okay, maybe this Belo Travel, the travel agency, will do a good job. That's amazing. Well, a side story is that the photographer, I had to get a news photographer for various reasons. I told him we were driving to Omaha. He's like, I'm not driving. I'm like, why not? You're going to get paid. You're paid by the hour, so you're going to get paid. I'll drive the whole time. You don't have to do anything but sit there. It's going to be fine. No, I'm not driving, not that far. That's crazy. So I went back to my boss and said, he won't drive. Can I fly him up at least part of the way? He said, yeah, see what you can find. Well, I found a cheap Southwest Airlines ticket to Kansas City, which is only about 2.5 hours or so from Omaha. So he was going to fly. I tried to time it out, and I timed it out pretty well. He flew out that night to Kansas City. I picked him up at about 8 o'clock at night, and we drive into Omaha. We get there after 10 and go to the hotel and walk up to the hotel and said, hey, sorry to be so late. I'm Mike Barnes, and here's my confirmation number. I'm sorry, Mr. Barnes, I don't have any record of this. When did you make this reservation? So, oh, I made it with my travel agent on Monday. Monday? We've been sold out for 6 months. Huh? Yeah, so it's travel agency isn't open. Can't call anybody. Oh my gosh, okay, what are we going to do? Well, she says, well, I've got good news for you. Hang on for about 30 minutes. I've got one room that no one's checked in yet. If no one checks in 30 minutes, you can have it. Okay, good. So we stay in that room that night. That's on, what was that, Thursday, like the 13th. So get up the next morning, and while I should be worried about Texas, the baseball team, playing that day or whenever they're going to play, either Friday or Saturday, and figuring out what stories I'm going to be doing that day, I'm worried about this hotel problem. So as soon as it's 8 or 9 o'clock, I'm calling Belo Travel and explaining the situation. They're like, huh, shows that everything went through okay here. Let me see if I can find something else. No, I can't find anything. Nope, I can't find anything. I'm in Omaha, Nebraska, where everyone who's a college baseball fan buys all the hotel rooms. I don't have one, and I'm supposed to stay the next 10 days. So for 10 days, because Texas won the national championship on, I think it was the 22nd, I am there the entire time, changing hotel rooms every single day, all around Omaha. One day I had to go to Lincoln, Nebraska, which is about 45 minutes away, to spend the night because we couldn't find anything. And the photographer I was with was rolling his eyes. He couldn't believe what we were going through. And it made the trip, while it was always fun going to Omaha, it was fun watching the Longhorns win the national championship. It was the hardest trip I ever took because of the length of time combined with the fact that every morning I'm either talking to the hotel where I just stayed that night or calling other hotels around the place to try and find a hotel room because everything was sold out and people flocked to Omaha. And I had to change again in 10 days. I think I stayed at 8 different hotels, moving around, packing, unpacking, and moving every morning. So, which made it a miserable experience. The kicker to it is that this was in June of 2002. I want to say it was spring of 2003, maybe February. The BELO travel person comes back for another meeting just to check in, see how things are going. And at some point I said, I've just got a question. I'm in sports and they often have like media hotels, which A, the rooms are there, B, sometimes it's a discount. Can I just use that? Because I had trouble in Omaha last year and it just made it really tough. And she says, oh yeah, you can do that anytime. That's not a problem at all. Okay, the translation was not that a year ago when you told me, or 2 years ago when you said you have to use us, you have to go through BELO Travel. Translations can give you headaches like I had in 2002. Translations can confuse everyone. Translations can affect the way you read things like it does these verses. So as you talk in your groups, think about translations. Think about changes in the world. Think about changes in society. And also think about what Paul has written here as we look at these. The other thing I want to tell you about is the translations from different Bibles. Like in the NIV, for verse 9, it says, I also want the women to dress modestly with decency and propriety, adorning themselves not with elaborate hairstyles or gold or pearls or expensive clothes. That was what the NIV said for verse 9. In the Message, it says, and I want women to get in there with the men in humility before God, not primping before a mirror or chasing the latest fashions. It's a different translation, isn't it? I mean, it's basically the same thing, but the translation is a little bit different. Another one is the New Living Translation. And I want women to be modest in their appearance. They should wear decent and appropriate clothing and not draw attention to themselves by the way they fix their hair or by wearing gold or pearls or expensive clothes. Again, the translation's a little bit different. And the Complete Jewish Bible says, likewise, the women, when they pray, should be dressed modestly and sensibly in respectable attire, not with elaborate hairstyles and gold jewelry or pearls or expensive clothes. Somehow they got the when they pray in the translation that other Bibles did not. And that one phrase changes everything, doesn't it? Again, think about the translation. Think about the changes. Think about these things as we look at these questions. Questions are, how have translations affected you? Again, I'm talking about translations bless you. I'm thinking about translations in your life. The translation that affected me in 2002 in Omaha, Nebraska. When has God kept you steady on the rock when societal changes, I forgot my other quote, I'm sorry. Societal changes, should be in quotes, have happened in your life? Again, that goes back to something like my dad being in Nassau, and he couldn't call me. In today's world, he could FaceTime me every day, basically for free. How do we honor these verses and still honor the women in our lives? Thank you.